Welcome. I'm Kevin Miller, and in this episode, the human style for your most effectiveness, efficiency, and energy. So most everyone is aware of their personality style to some degree. You've likely taken one or five personality tests and quizzes where you answer a bunch of questions about yourself. What are your propensities and predispositions? I appreciate these profiles and tests and have found value from each of them in helping me understand and get some insight into myself. And I've also struggled with them being self-reporting. I find it hard to sometimes answer with how I perceive myself that may not be very true, as we often see ourselves with a skewed perception. And I may answer more how I want to be than how I actually am. Well, about 2 years ago, someone told me about human design as another concept here. It's similar, but all you provide here is your birthday, your place of birth, and your time of birth. Well, in my past, I would have shunned this as some crazy spiritual stars hoodoo guru junk. However, I kept hearing about it from people that I respected, and I took the human design profile. I paid for the bigger version of it, and it's now been over 2 years of me finding really incredible value for understanding myself and some propensities that I never found out through all the profiles. I didn't even find it out through therapy. So what do you do with something you find great resonance, value, and validity from, even though you don't understand how it works? Well, for me, I'm just using it. Of interest, though, in prepping for talking about this, I looked up all the ones that we habitually use in personal development and psychology, the things that become pillars in our culture and even our workplaces, and wondering, where did they originate? So you do it for yourself. Do your own search. Look up who invented X and insert your favorite profile. So I'm not going to go through some exhaustive list, but the Enneagram, for instance, was developed in 1915 by some philosopher. The DISC profile was developed in 1928 by a psychologist. Myers-Briggs in 1940 by a couple women based on Carl Jung's teachings. The type A or type B concept was in the 1950s, developed by a cardiologist. And then finally in 1980s, we get this human design concept from what I'd say a guy who's kind of a spiritualist, used to be an ad exec. None of them seem to be scientifically based and proven, yet we use so many of them as this really solid base of information for ourselves. So in this episode, I'm back again with Erin Claire Jones, who is one of the world's leading experts in human design. Through her coaching, her content, her digital products, she has helped hundreds of thousands of people find value through human design. And she's culminated her story and work in a new book called How Do You Choose? A Human Design Guide to What's Best for You at Work, in Love, and in Life. So my point in this podcast is to help guide you to your own personal growth and evolution, just as I am pursuing my own. As you'll hear, I have and continue to find great value in this human design outline of how I really function best. It's helped me find some peace with some of my own aspects and figure out how to utilize them for better benefit. I just blown away by it and continue to hear the same testimony from friends of mine, people I respect who continue to check it out and invest in it. So there you go. See what you think. You can find Erin's book and the blueprint. Just go to humandesignblueprint.com. And I would recommend giving it a shot. All right. Hey, if you want to hone in on your human design and your purpose and fulfilling that in your work or a business, I would be honored to connect with you. Find me at kevinmiller.co or email me directly at kmiller@kevinmiller.co. All right. Coming up next is my conversation with Erin Claire Jones about our human design and how to use it for ourselves and understand it for ourselves. Let's evolve ourselves some today. Erin, we last did a show together. It was November 2023. I didn't remember it was that long ago. It seems like yesterday. Mm-hmm. And at the time, and I shared openly with you, the whole human design concept, I kind of didn't want it to be true.
Yeah.
I've switched, and now I really want it to be true. And it's a significant shift. Probably says a lot about my life in general of just opening to new things. And I continue just to resonate with it. I don't have a better way of saying than that. And I just thank you. Just thanks. Thanks for doing what you
Oh
do.
my gosh, it's so amazing to hear that, and I do find that a lot of people that are the most resistant to human design at the beginning are the ones that fall in love with it the most. Obviously, not every time, but there is something around like, I don't want to believe this, and yet like it's just so resonant. So like, tell me more. I want to learn more, So I
Yeah.
love hearing that that's been your journey.
Well, and I do want to hit on that. I have a good sized audience that would say they're faith based in
Yeah.
essence. And I come from the Bible Belt and Christianity and still have aspects of my faith within that. And of course, with that, anything regarding the stars or whatever was blasphemous. And I, on one hand, well, you wrote this in the book, in your new book, you wrote this in the story in your own journey of maybe I'll say reconciling this. And you said, does the information have to be true to be helpful? That line alone, there are so many things that I use and get benefit from that I have no idea how they work. I have no concept of them. And yet I obviously put faith in them and I find value. And so I found myself not needing to go figure out how this exactly works and just
Yeah.
look at, am I finding benefit? Does it resonate? And when I did my first human design blueprint that I continue to review, I'm continually, I guess, evolving in the understanding and again, the resonance of it. And it helps me, well, as the book says, it helps me understand how to choose better in alignment with who apparently I seem to be. Does that sound like I'm tracking?
It does, and I think it's just a really helpful perspective with any system of like, is it useful? That's kind of the only point. I think my intention with this book is to hopefully make human design more accessible to people that maybe have been less into it in the past, because it's just like, I'm going to present a lot of information, a lot of frameworks. Like, does it feel useful? That's the only question you need to ask yourself, So I think that is really my intention, is to not try to convince people of anything, but just to offer a really interesting framework to think about who they are and how they choose and whether they can do it in a way that feels better.
I just remembered, I had not thought about it till now. One of my early kind of big name folks on the podcast was Dan Harris. And it was back when I think his book first came out, 10% Happier, before the podcast, before anything. And that was part of what I appreciated with him. He was talking about meditation, which again was kind of this, from my past religious background, this woo woo thing we don't really touch. And he wanted to, I can't remember how he said it, kind of demystify, de woo woo the concept. And I feel like you've done, again, I appreciate that with you. And as again, I look at my own human design, which I've been spending time going back in, the thing I have always struggled with, and I want my great friends out there who are big proponents of Myers-Briggs and DISC and Enneagram and on and on. I get great value from those as well. Always have. I still do.
Yeah.
I still use them. I still promote them. And I always struggle with the self-reporting aspect of it.
Yep.
That I know I'm trying to just be honest to myself and go, Kevin, just be you. Don't get caught in here, because I know it sways the answer. Well, that does not exist with human design. It's got three components that I can't change. I have no control over, which again, I kind of don't, some of me does not like that. Like, really?
Right.
I don't want to be put, well, is that common? There's some aspect of me that I don't want to be put in a box and labeled that I cannot change my birth date, my birth time, and where I was. And yet it's being said that this is what even though I resonate with it, a little bit of me cringes. Is that, or is that just the manifesting generator in me?
Well, it's so funny because obviously so much around your type is like you can't be put in a box, even though, human design is giving you language around how you operate. I think that when I first started sharing human design, I felt actually quite nervous that that would be the case for people. Like I didn't want it to feel super prescriptive and like limiting in any way. And yet I think that everyone I've talked to, has had a similar experience where they're like, I don't want to be boxed in, but like what you're saying is giving me language for my inner workings in a way that I know to be true, and actually in a way that feels really empowering. And so I think when I sit with people and they're like, I don't know, I don't do it that way, I'm like, if another way is working for you, I will never tell you not to do it. what your human design reveals is often a way of working that's just going to feel like a little bit more in flow and probably is going to just work a little bit better for you. But people can do whatever they want, But I think that I've just heard so many people just come back to like, I tried all the other ways and this way does work better for me. And also, one thing I'll just say is like, our human design doesn't tell us that, like, you're going to host a podcast for decades, or you must live in this place, or you're going to have this many kids. It's more like, oh, you're like a gut driven decision maker. Like, time helps you assess what's right. You're somebody who's very multi-passionate, multi-dimensional. So I do find that we can express our design in so many different ways as we grow. So to me, it never has felt fixed in that way, because it's not about like what we can do. It's more around how we can just become who we are. And it just serves as a guidepost as we walk that path. Is that clear?
Yes, I got a couple questions on that. Is it relevant to think of it as an animal? That it is showing me kind of what type of animal. We're all humans, we're all animals, but it's showing me, helping me see that I just tend to be more of a monkey. And if I'm climbing trees and eating bananas and whatever, I am more. So does that, and again, even on the confining thing, I don't want to be, I am what I am. I'm a monkey, so I'm just not going to swim. Well, I might, but it may not be as fluent for me. It may be a little more energy draining. I can do these things.
Exactly.
Okay.
No, I think you're so right. I think it's like, I was just like saying that because I was like, yes, that's been my experience of it. But I think that think of it as like, it just reveals our mechanics and we can either flow with that or against it. So like it does kind of be like, oh, this is the animal you are. These are your mechanics. And like, I've had plenty of times where I'm like, I don't want to do this. I'm that type. And, my husband's been really good at calling me out of being like, you kind of like, it might be useful to do it. And you're right that I'll go do a thing that feels maybe not the best for my type, but like, and it's a lot more energy draining, but like it's necessary for a point in time, And so I think like what you're saying is like, they are those moments, but I never want human design to be an excuse of like, I can't do this or I can't become this because I am this. The way that I've always phrased it is that human design does not limit what you can do or who you can partner with. It just lets you know how you'll do it best. It's not like there's one type that cannot be an entrepreneur, one type that can't partner with this kind of person. It's more like it's just going to look different for each of you. So, how can you do it in a way that actually feels sustainable and really good for you?
Well, and that even I can survive doing a lot of stuff. And Erin, I have, we were talking about kids before we started recording, and this is always hard to discuss. I have a lot of kids. So I have 9 kids, 7 that we had and a couple we adopted. It sounds great. And it is great. It's amazing. It's also part of my own story of just driving with my hair on fire and not really asking where I'm going or why I'm doing it. And, I have continued. I actually read a book my brother recommended to me, old book by a lady that died in 1940, Florence Scovel Shinn. I don't know if you've heard of her, but she's kind of one of the early folks talking about manifesting in essence. Cool. And she just had this piece in the book that talked about energy from an aspect of doing more of what gives you energy and doing less of what, takes energy away. Again, nothing new. The moment that I was in, the way she wrote it, I don't know. And it just hit me more of how much time I've spent doing things that I can do. Yeah. But it is draining me and from my point, it came to moments of significant burnout that had collateral damage. And so again, coming back to this and let me give you, I don't know if you remember this, probably not, because you've done a lot of shows, but last November when we talked, or November 2023, 2 Novembers ago, one of the things that mine said, so I'm a manifesting generator. We'll get into the types here in a second. I am, and my authority. Your
strategy is wait to respond, and your authority is emotional.
Strategy, wait to respond. Okay, that one. When I first got it, I didn't even catch that. And you, having looked at mine, pulled that out at some point. Oh, you wait to respond. I did not like that. I don't. No, I initiate stuff. I make stuff happen. That's my identity.
Of course. And
then I chilled out and opened myself a little to it and thought, holy smokes, it is so true. And so I'm doing this from my home office and I have a wood mill out. We live in a national forest. So I'm in a forest. We have a wood mill and I mill wood and stuff. And when I have a project that I want to do, we need some new bookshelves or let's do a new bunk bed or whatever we're going to do like that. I don't get out a blueprint and figure out a perfect plan and then go buy the perfect stuff. I just walk out and see what tools do I have, what building material, and what wood do I have milled that's laying around, and I'm going to respond to it. That is what
Yeah.
I love. If you give me a blueprint with the exact blueprint, but if you give me, like a
Yeah.
construction blueprint with the exact thing and to make it perfectly, I have zero joy. Then to just go buy it at IKEA or have somebody else do it. That is not me. I'm going to create
Hmm.
something out of what I have. I'm going to respond to it. That's what hit me so much. That's probably been one of the primary pillars that I've held on to from human design, because I
Yeah.
was so drastically blind to it. And I think I spent so much time trying to initiate stuff,
Yeah.
and it drained me and it wasn't comfortable. But I just didn't, it was my identity. And I'm thinking, how many things do we have as part of our identity that don't line up at all? And it's draining the heck out of us.
Yeah, and it does. You're so right that I think it frees us and gives us so much more energy to operate in a way that is just more aligned. And like for context, for the people listening, waiting to respond is very much around allowing things to show up in your world and just see where your gut pulls you. And I might
Mm-hmm.
be wrong about this, but it also feels like that was your journey with human design. It feels like human design showed up in your world through your friend. It maybe was not a thing that like made logical sense to you, and
Mm-mm.
yet there was a part of you that was like, I'm intrigued. Like I would like to explore this. And like that's just the way that you're meant to live your life, where it's like things show up and you're just like checking with your gut and your body to see where it's pulling you. And what's so cool about this strategy is that it often pulls you in really unexpected directions. So it's not about being like, I know where I'll be in 5 years or 10 years. It's like, I'm going to just see what feels right and trust one kind of breadcrumb at a time will move me in the right direction.
Yeah, it reminds me again of the self-reporting aspect that I struggle with again, with the other profiling mechanisms that I do get value from, I do appreciate, but
Yep.
this one, I chose to not reject it and to open myself. And as I do and continue to, I mean, to some point, I was thinking about this in the past few days, Erin, thinking about this, that, I mean, how many of us, this used to be the thing from my, spiritual or my religious background or something. I wish that sometimes I walk out the door and a stone tablet fall out of the sky and just tell me, Kevin, this is who you are. This is what you're supposed to do. Like the 10 Commandments concept. That would be great
Yeah.
sometimes, instead of having to figure it out. To some degree, I feel like this could be kind of the closest thing I've found to that. I mean, I have no control. And I will admit, from
Yeah.
my personal faith choices, I have no problem with this now.
Yeah.
That as I look out, I mean, I'm out here in the Rocky Mountains and I walk outside and I can see the Milky Way and I look at it and I'm blown away by the majesty, the glory, the mystery of it. And to think, could things have been, I do believe in intelligent design. I look out and I think, I can't believe this is all happenstance. So could it also have something to do with the day I was born and the time I was born and the place I was born that has some relevance? I just have no problem with that now. So
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it just goes back to the usefulness. Like, I think it is, I
useful,
think
yeah.
it's funny you say that because I think the way that I've always understood human design is like we come into this life without a manual. And I agree with you that human design is the closest I've found to give us a
Mhm.
manual. Again, not to predict where we're going to go in our lives and who we're going to meet and what we'll do with our careers, but to just connect us into like, how do we make decisions and like, how does our energy function day to day? And how can we create better opportunities for ourselves and how can we leverage our strengths and things that are just so fundamental to every part of our lives. And so I don't know. I had a very similar experience to you of just being like, oh, this really feels useful and this sounds like me. And I have actually been resisting a lot of this my entire life. And it's really hopeful and exciting to know there's another way, because I too am not meant to initiate. And I also want to just speak to your point around the other personality tests and, questionnaire based assessments. And, I agree, those can be incredibly useful. So this is not to say human design is superior. However, for me, when I've gone through that experience, I've answered differently every time based on where I am in my life and also
Yeah.
who I'm answering for. And I think that I spent a lot of my life resisting my design. And so it wasn't until somebody just called me out and was like, this is your human design, that I was like, am I allowed to operate that way? That feels the best, but I had no idea that was okay. And so I do think a lot of people are not living their design or feeling the permission to. And so they will likely not answer a questionnaire in a way aligned with that, And so it does kind of pull us back to our essence in a way that I had a harder time connecting to when I was kind of answering for myself.
Yes. And you just said it's not that it predicts things. And I in my recent notes. Does this line up for you? That human design, it's not telling me who I am, but it is kind of revealing how I
I love
am.
that.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. How I'm best to function, in essence. And
Yes.
well, let's talk about some of the, the aspects, the
Yeah.
type, the strategy, the authority. And then I'm going to let this be organic, but I do have a specific question for you after we do that in
Yeah.
regards to you and I mean, this is the, call it what you want. I refer to it a lot as human potential. Call it
Yeah.
self-help, personal development, whatever. And in this industry, we are all people are listening to this podcast because they resonate with me somewhat and my guests and whatnot. And so they're looking for guidance. We all are. And I'm looking for guidance.
Yeah.
And our tendency is to look out there. And what I'm going to do after we go through this is question who we are looking for guidance from and who we are trusting in. I'll just leave it there. I want to go.
Can I just add one thing? And
Yeah.
then I know we'll go through the things.
Yeah.
I think what has actually made me feel, the way that I begin the book is very much like the question you posed of like, does it have to be true to be useful? Like, and I've just kind of reckoned with that throughout my whole journey. And I think the thing that has made me feel the best about sharing human design with the world is that when I sit with somebody in session and they ask me like, what should I do about this? I do not have the answer. Like I basically use their human design to point them back towards themselves and help them discover their own authority and exactly what they should do. So I think that like what human design does more than anything else is it returns us to us and it helps us know how do we choose things. And so I think that feels very empowering. So just to kind of speak to your point around influences, like I definitely don't serve as a person that's like, you should do this with your life. It's more like, oh, like according to your design, you're somebody who makes decisions based on your gut. You do really well sleeping on things. Like, what is the answer that stays true to you when you kind of give yourself 24 hours? Or what is the answer that stays true to you when you speak it out, whatever it is for that person? And so I do think there's something around kind of returning people to themselves that human design does so powerfully in a way that makes me feel so good about sharing it, because I basically am reminding people of what they already know and haven't really given themselves permission to honor.
Okay. I'm going to hold myself off because I so want to go down that path desperately. I really do.
I had to put it out there. Okay.
But I think I'll do it. If I do, I won't do as good a justice to it for those who aren't familiar with human design until we go through these three things.
Yeah.
So
perfect.
Maybe it'll be even a brief aspect of it. So the type. So when you go to Human Design Blueprint, you can take the free little, just enter your
Correct.
birth date,
place and time.
Place and time, which like most people, I didn't know my time. I literally had to go to my birth certificate and find my time.
Yeah.
And you can take the free one there. I took that one and was so impressed. I immediately bought what is it called?
The guide.
The guide. Okay. And you're going to come out with one of 5 types: generators, manifesting generators, projectors, manifestors, and reflectors. And it's going to go through and, like a personality profile in essence, kind of give you a depiction of, hey, this is based on this. This is how you look to be. You're a generator.
Projector.
You're a projector, right? Okay. Let me start off with this. Generators. I went through your book and you had the percentages, and I think I'd asked about this before, but in this, thanks for putting the percentages. You had generators saying that's 36% of the general populace. Yes. Manifesting generators. That's me, 30%. Projectors, you, 23%. Manifestors, 10, and reflectors, 1.
Crazy, right?
Let me start there because I'd almost think really 1%. Is that even valid? How can 1% be valid? But that's enough of the populace that you have it human design has it as its own type.
Yeah.
How do you feel if you're a reflector? Do you feel proud or weird?
I think that, it's so funny because I do. I've actually worked with a lot of reflectors because I find that discovering human design for them tends to be like the biggest relief. I
Mm.
will say a lot of reflectors that I've sat with have felt a little bit alien. Like, and I don't say me feeling like they're alien. They have felt like they're a little bit like alien. They're just like, I feel like I'm experiencing the world different than most people. And they are. And so
Mm.
human design tends to be like the biggest tool for them to be like, oh, there's like a reason why. And so I love sitting with reflectors. And I think, one of the gifts of reflectors is mirroring back and reflecting a space and kind of assessing what's not working, how things could be made better. So we don't need so many of them. You kind of need one reflector in a team or in a community to kind of mirror back what they see and offer this really wise, objective perspective. So they just serve in a role that I think, we don't require so many of them. One can make the biggest impact.
I think my ego would really like to be like the 1%. I want to be that special, but I'm only, I'm 30%, not
Well,
that unique. Go.
Well, one thing I'll just add there, because I've heard that before and I so
Mm.
get it, is, our type is such a fundamental part of our design and it's also just the first piece. There's so much to your design.
Fair.
Like the guide you're talking about, there are 400,000 possible versions of that guide. And so your version of that guide is like your version. You know what I mean? Like there's just probably not going to be somebody else who has that exact version. So while some types there are more than others, there's just so much more underneath that makes you totally unique. And also part of why there are more generators and manifesting generators is because these types are the ones that like do and create and have the capacity to build. And so thank God we have so many of them, because when they're kind of really lit up and excited by what they're doing, they power all of us. They give all of us energy.
Okay, let me ask a couple things on that. So when I first started reading it, and it talks about being involved in lots of things and as a manifesting generator and being able to pivot and whatnot, those things all, I felt like, yeah, that's pretty much who I am. It did comfort. I comforted myself with it
Yeah.
in that I have been. I can't say it really. I probably accused myself somewhat, feeling self conscious of being flaky.
Yeah.
And I
Manifesting generators
do.
often do. Yeah.
Okay, well, and I'll tell you. Uh, Speaking of another profile, Patrick Lencioni. Such a well-known guy in the business world, and he has his working genius, another profile. And in that, my number one is wonder, like taking an idea and creating a structure. My second one is an invention, creating something to fulfill that need, that problem, that whatever. And my worst, the thing that according to his profile I'm worst at is tenacity, finishing things. And
Well,
that's where it started. I did that before I did this, before I took the human design. I start stuff. That is my strength. I start stuff. So you give me a blank piece of paper, an idea, something that you want, a problem that you have, man, I'm your guy, and we'll create a structure to deal with it.
yeah.
Then I'm done. Then take that. And it helped me embrace that, guys, that's a great skill.
Oh my
I,
God. Yeah.
Okay, it'd be like if I go to the hospital, I don't have the one person check me in and do every task and do my surgery and check me out and then wheel me out. There's like 20 people involved. Well,
Yeah.
I'm the guy that you start the thing with. So it did help my acceptance, I guess. Is that fair of my
Oh my
propensity?
God. Yeah. I think that what I found with human design is that we often make ourselves wrong for things that are just really true to us.
Mm-hmm.
Manifesting generators, for those that are new, are very multi-passionate by nature. They might enjoy having many passions, many things that stimulate them. Their days can always be changing and like they're pivoting from one thing to the next. But often manifesting generators have been made to feel scattered or like they're doing too much and they've got to choose just one path. But that's like the most unnatural thing ever for them. And so they tend to feel like a lot of permission, like you said, to realize like that's an extraordinary gift. You
Yeah.
are meant to try things on and let them go. You are meant to bring things to life and then move on to the next. Like,
Yeah.
as you said, like that's you tapping into your gift. That's not you, being non-committal or not being able to finish what you start.
Yeah, now I just feel confident. Say, okay, if we're going to do this project, I'll start, and we need to
Yeah.
hire who's going to finish it. Because if we rely on me to finish it, we're going to be up a creek. Okay, now some of that, when I first started reading it, I thought, okay, I could kind of lump that into the type A, blah, 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 go out there and
Yeah.
get things. But then let's come to something that I've never seen attached to any type of a go-getter type thing. And it was kind of in the decision or when I respond to things, the sleeping on it concept. Erin, that
Yeah.
again was top tier to me because I have a tendency to get excited about something I'm excited. One of my ideas. I'm excited, whatever. And let's just do it. Let's buy the domain. Let's get things going,
Yeah.
create everything and go out and do it, only to find out I pulled the trigger way too early.
Yeah.
So to sleep on it there. Now, where it resonated, I don't know if it would have otherwise, but where it really
Yeah.
resonated and caught me was in regards to emotions and negative emotions, conflict. I
Mm,
seem to be very conflict avoidant. And if things get emotionally heated, I feel stuck. I
yeah.
feel incompetent. I feel impotent, even as a word that comes up. And I found myself retreating
Yeah.
because I didn't know what else to do. Taking this, I found out, oh my gosh, sleeping on it. So now I am
Yeah.
100% comfortable to take whatever idea I'm excited about today and, or what emotional thing I am struggling with, negative feelings, fear, whatever, and go, hey, to myself or to whoever I'm dealing with, I'm literally going to sleep on it. And it may be a
Hmm.
night of sleeping, it may be 3 days of sleeping or a week, or I don't know.
Yeah.
But I had called myself a slow processor. I just, for
Yeah.
lack of better terms, that's the best I could come up with until the human design. So I pull that out again because everybody listening to this, they're not manifesting generators. But my point being that the human design blueprint pulled something out. I had no context. I had no. I'd never heard about, and
Right.
it was hit me like a ton of bricks in a good way.
Yeah, and also for those listening, not all manifesting generators will have that. You could be somebody who's super fast in your decision making, but that's kind of where the nuance comes. Like you are somebody who's got so much energy to build and create, and yet to assess the right places for your energy to go, it's about sleeping on things and feeling into things. And it's funny looking at your design, I have it up like your design talks about you being so excitable and so easily inspired. So I feel so unsurprised hearing that. But
Yeah.
then it requires you just taking time to really confirm like, is my energy really there for it?
Okay, so you just said, and I'm still a novice here, that so I am apparently 30% of the population of manifesting generators. I just said something and I attached it to the manifesting generators, and you said, no, they're not all like that. That's you, Kevin. You,
Correct.
according to you specifically, you need to sleep on it. So don't meet another manifesting generator. This kind of takes away, if I can sidestep a
Yeah.
second, talking about the stars and aspects. I mean, my context for that growing up was the newspaper with your horoscope.
Yeah.
I don't think you have the word horoscope or any of those things, Sagittarius or blah, blah, whatever.
Mm-mm.
I've not seen that attached to you at all.
Yeah.
Help me with the difference or help me with the separation or that they don't connect or what.
So, astrology, honestly, they're just different systems, astrology and human design. Human design is the composite of many different systems. So it pulls from astrology, that's one of them. It also pulls from the Kabbalah, the I Ching. It pulls from, a lot of the chakra system. Like it's pretty expansive. So it pulls from all those systems and then kind of becomes its own thing. And so you can't make these direct correlations of like, oh, you're a Taurus and therefore you're a projector. Like it's just
Yeah.
not like that. I do find they really support each other because astrology does, of course, play a role, but they're just different systems.
Well, so
And
to that point
yeah,
with the astrology, I'll have people, especially back before I had any involvement in this, and they go, when's your birthday? Oh, it's December 6th. Oh, you're Sagittarius. Oh, we're alike. And I'm thinking, no, I'm not seeing it that much. But in this sense, manifesting generators, okay, we probably will have some commonalities, but what percentage? Who knows? Fair?
totally fair.
Okay.
And then there are going to be deeper layers too, where it's like, oh, we maybe share profile or share these other pieces. And I also just say, I'll say in general, I have a lot of people ask me about compatibility with human design. Like, if I'm a manifesting generator, should I only date this type? And, my belief, again, like I said at the beginning, is human design doesn't tell us who we can be with. It just lets us know how we can be with them best. And so I think that there's something really harmonious around being with people of the same type. And there's something really attractive and fun around being with people of different types. And I would say even looking at you as a manifesting generator, like you would probably thrive working with people of different types. Having a lot of manifesting generators on one team, like might not be the best fit. Like it's good to kind of have a diversity of people around you.
Oh goodness. I Erin, I have tended to partner with people like me, and it's fun for the ideation and the starting things, and then it fails if we don't
Totally.
have those other people. So I hear you and accept that. I have not always done that.
Yeah.
Let me ask you another question on this in regards to, so here's my blueprint. It testifies to my propensity to want to be involved in a lot of things, have a lot of balls in the air in
Yeah.
essence, which, oh my gosh. Oh, well, and that's the point. Can you abuse it? Can you let yourself be so unrestrained? And I'll own it. So here I am, and am I doing all things? Yeah, at any given moment, there's 3 businesses, there's 9 kids, there's however many grandkids, there's my own personal pursuits. And the common question that I get from people out of seemingly admiration is, "Oh my gosh, Kevin, you're amazing. How do you do it all?" And as time has gone on, I proof is apparently I haven't. I mean,
Mm.
I've have I done them kind of, but there's collateral damage. I mean, that it's too much. A lot of
Yeah.
times I have let myself get involved in too much, and there's a lot of balls dropping. So today, don't ask me. So how do you keep all the balls in the air? I don't. I'm just figuring out which ones are urgent while the others crash.
Right.
So help me with that.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I would say like as a manifesting generator, the point is not that you're like doing 1,000 things at once all the time. It's more around the fact that like you might not be satisfied doing just one thing. It
Okay.
might me feel more natural for you to be like, I'm also an author, I'm also have the podcast, I'm also a family man. Like you can be so many things. I would say for you, you do have a potential challenge of being like so excitable that you get pulled into a bajillion things at once. And if you say yes in the moment instead of sleeping on things, you might say yes prematurely, only to
Yeah.
regret it later down the line. And so I would say, like, yes, you are multi passionate. You are not meant to have a super linear career path, but it is so essential to you that you really, so essential that you really take your time feeling into decisions just to ensure that you're actually putting your energy into the right thing at the right time. Because the reality is, you might be passionate about 10 different things. But when I ask you, is it time to pursue that thing? You might have the answer, like it might be a yes to 2 of them or 3 of them. And so this is not about you having infinite energy. It's around having a lot of energy, but being very discerning about where you put it. And so,
Mm.
just to kind of simplify, I would say like our human design kind of offers guardrails here where it's like, okay, yes, you're multi passionate, but when it comes to assess where to actually put your energy and when to put it there, sleep on things to actually assess what's right for you. So that's kind of the biggest tool you have to really make sure you're putting your energy in the right place and not overdoing it. And you have the propensity to overdo it for sure because you are so easily inspired and probably feel drawn to like pursuing all the things. And you're somebody who also has way more ideas than you will ever know what to do with. And so a big lesson of your design is not trying to make every idea happen, letting them be inspiring for others and using your gut feeling over time to know which ideas are worthy of your energy.
Which for me takes a lot more presentness. Yeah. Otherwise, yeah, I can get overwhelmed to the point of I don't know what to do.
Totally.
For sure. Well, you said infinite energy, even that. So to look at these, no matter what your type or whatever, we all are still, would it be fair? We're all still human. So no matter what your
Yeah.
type, you're going to have to sleep at some point. Probably
Yeah.
drink some water, probably have, you're not unlimited. So Kevin,
Totally.
you're not God or Superman. You're just
Yes.
kind of immortal, and you're still going to have, well, boundaries. And you actually speak to boundaries, which has been, well, I've had Nedra Tawwab Glover on the show 2 or 3 times now, as I continue to try to learn boundaries.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, can I add one piece there, just like
Please.
as a tool for generators and manifesting generators? So, you know, one thing that I think is really useful when communicating with these types, which is obviously a lot of people, is asking them really specific questions when they want an answer to something, when they're trying to make a decision. And so you're somebody who's a gut driven person in your design. I'm not, this is not for everybody. But one of the best ways for me to speak to your gut directly is to pose a yes, no question or a specific question. What I mean by that is instead of asking you, like, hey, Kevin, what do you want to do next? I would be like, hey, Kevin, do you want to do this next? Does this feel like the right timing to pursue it? And so I would say if you're ever feeling confused about where to put your energy, it's really useful for those around you to ask you specific questions. Like, do you want to do this? And does the timing feel right? And you might find that you've got a very visceral response. I so often sit with clients that will kind of talk around a decision for 10 minutes or 20 minutes. And then I'll sit and I'll be like, and do you want to do it? And they're like, no. And it's like, oh, it's as simple as that. So I do find human design is so useful in its practicality, and that it really just helps us kind of like get to the truth of things very quickly. And this is for simple things too. My husband's a generator. If I ask him what he wants to eat for dinner, he gives me like a blank stare. But if I'm like, do you want to go out or cook at home? Do you want salmon or do you want chicken? He's like, salmon, obviously at home. Like he just knows so clearly. I just wasn't asking him in the proper way for him.
Again, Erin, it resonates. I had one counselor in particular who kept calling me out and said, Kevin, I asked you a question. You spent 10 minutes talking conceptually. You're talking about the
You
big
got that in
ideas
your
up here.
design.
And I just, it was so foreign. It was so foreign. And so again, to read I think that's the thing. And I guess that's what I would want to share with people. As I read down through my type, one of the 5
Yeah.
types, I just kept finding threads of truth that I had little inklings of, but I had missed them.
Yeah.
They weren't apparent enough. And again, with as much benefit as I give the other profiles, they had not touched on any of these things. So many of these things were brand new in being defined and labeled for me. And again, they weren't all exciting to see initially, like the one on, being responsive. I wanted to reject it. And
Yeah.
yet when I let it settle, I kept finding, oh my gosh, there's a thread and there's a thread. I'm sure this is elementary, but like a lot of people, I want to read this thing. I want to get my human design, read it and be like, holy crap, there I am.
Yeah.
And yet, what am I? Not a year and a half now yet, but I feel like I just keep evolving. I keep understanding as I understand myself more. It's like I need to go back and read it, and then the next thing resonates.
100%, and it was so funny for me. Like in writing the book, I obviously, as you know, as an author, like I read it 1,000 times, and like I'm doing copy editing and all the stuff. I remember the last time I read it before it went to print last week, but before I did it, I was reading the chapter around projectors and relationships. I wrote the chapter and yet I read it and all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, like that's why this relationship is feeling so hard. That's why this is so strained. And I can't believe I like haven't done this. Like, so I have been teaching this system and sharing it and studying it for 10 years. I wrote the book that I was reading and yet I still have to be reminded all the time of like, oh, this is how it applies. Oh, I
Yeah.
could do this differently. And so I think what you're saying is so right on. I mean, I have people have their human design guides like you have and read it every week, read it every month, read it every year because something new comes up every single time. And I will just say, as somebody who's very deep in the system, something new for me comes up every time because my life is different and therefore the way it's going to show up is going to look different. But I was so surprised where I was like, I can't believe I just had a revelation and I wrote these words. Like you think I would just like immediately know, but I don't. I too need to be kind of reminded of like, oh, this is why this isn't working. Oh, this is why this is feeling really good.
I thank you.
Yeah.
The amount of knowledge that we have that we don't often apply or we
I
fall
know.
away from or whatnot. But yeah, as I continue to mature, evolve,
Yeah.
be aware, become more aware of myself, then I can see more, which is why I have the PDF up and I'm just rereading and rereading. Well, so the type,
Okay. Yes.
for folks, to go to Human Design Blueprint, you can put in your data there and come out with your type and pay for the full, what is it called? The full, what?
It's called the Human Design Guide, and we still have that discount code DRIVE as well.
The
Just for
guide.
listeners.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And to take that, you're going to come out with your type. Now, the strategy then, give us a definition of what strategy means.
Yeah.
In
Okay.
this context.
And also just for context, because I know we got distracted by all the things, but type is the part of our design that speaks to how we can use our energy most effectively, what our gifts are. Like for you being multi-passionate, for me as a projector, my gifts are really around leading and teaching and guiding and not doing all the doing. Manifestor's gift is really around initiating and disrupting and being the first. Generators is really around bringing ideas to life and being very masterful. And we talked a bit about reflectors. So those are types.
Okay.
Strategy is attached to our type. So every type will have the same strategy, as in manifesting generators all share the same strategy. But the strategy speaks to how we best create opportunities in our life and also to some of our communication needs. So to give people a practical example of that, as a manifesting generator or a generator, Your strategy, as you said, is to respond. This basically means you are meant to let life come to you and see what shows up in your world before you go after it. What I mean by that is you might not be seeking human design or looking for a personality assessment system, but it shows up and you're like, I feel drawn to it. I'm going to move towards that. So it's really about just seeing what shows up and kind of what inspires your gut before you take action. So it does not mean you're meant to sit at home and like come up with an idea out of thin air. You're meant to kind of be in response to life and see what naturally pulls you toward it.
Okay, let me ask you again, back from my religious context. I grew up in the, waiting upon the Lord type thing. And
Yeah.
I grew up in a very proactive house. That was what was
Yeah.
advocated. And I frustrated myself with that kind of aspect of, waiting on God. And like, I'm just going to sit here and wait. I'm
Yeah.
not. And so I finally got to the point for myself of going, okay, I'm going to do active waiting, meaning I'm going to go
Yeah.
knock on lots of things. Now I need to watch out that I don't just knock and then bust the door down. So just knock and wait. But again, it was difficult. But with that, I still thought of myself as this initiator and realizing, so can I do that? And have I done that? Yes. And yes. Has it sometimes been successful? Probably. But is it comfortable for me? No. And as I have, again, hopefully matured some and really kind of tired out a little bit,
Yeah.
I've gotten more comfortable with it. And then here we are, and I get my guide, and it says, no, that's kind of what I'm to do, is to wait to respond. Now, I still think that I tend towards, if I could call it, active waiting.
Well, I love you bringing that up because there's no strategy in human design that's meant to be passive. I remember once sharing this strategy with my friend, and she called me the next day. She's like, I'm sitting on my couch and nothing's happening. I was like, oh, no, 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 not the strategy. Like, generators and manifesting generators are doers by nature. Waiting to respond is simply a way to ensure your doing energy is in the right direction. And so I would say for you, you're always responding. You're responding to kind of what your podcast guests are saying. You're responding to things you see on Instagram or podcasts you listen to or books. And so you're just waiting for your gut to light up in response to
Wow.
something in your environment. One thing I'll say, which is like the best part of active waiting for these types, is the more that you use your energy in satisfying ways every day, whether it's what you're working on, who you're spending time with, what you're reading, the more you attract into your world that will be more aligned. So one of the best ways to actively wait is to use your energy in ways that feel good. Because
Yeah.
when you feel lit up and satisfied, like your energy just becomes so magnetic. And so often when I sit with clients that are seeking a partner or seeking a new job, one of my first recommendations is like, carve out some time each day to kind of do a thing that just feels really personally fulfilling and deeply satisfying, and just start to pay attention to what you see. And so that's a really powerful way to actively wait. Another one is to just like go about your daily life and just open up your awareness. Sometimes you can get so fixed on like a certain outcome or a certain thing that you kind of become blind to all these other things that are coming your way. And so when you open up your awareness, again, I just keep using the human design example, but like it's like, oh, this thing feels attractive in ways I didn't expect. I'm going to follow that nudge.
I had not thought about it till you were talking just now, and you said responding. You mentioned me being here, and I'm responding to you. This is this is. I mean, I was a pro cyclist, and today being on a mountain bike, let's say I'm in flow. Put me on a trail, running or riding, and it's just. I mean, I can lose myself. It's flow. So is this. This right here is having a discussion around something that I have interest in, curiosity in, familiarity in, uh, is flow, and I am responding. And Erin, I do it. And anybody out there, if you want me to speak for your corporation or whatever, I'll do that. However, it drains me some. I would much rather my first speaking gig, I convinced them to let me have two chairs and to have the CEO on stage and have a conversation. I wanted to have a conversation. Just have me sit there and just do a presentation. I can do it. I've gotten good feedback from it, but I'd rather have a conversation. I'd rather respond or do a live Q&A. Do that.
Yeah.
You can put me in front of 10,000 people on a chair, talk about something that I have interest and curiosity in, and my pulse rate's going to be way down here. You put me up to just present, and it's not my comfort zone, which my strategy attests to. Fair?
Exactly. And it was funny, even when we started this conversation, you're like, I'm just going to let it flow. And I was like, oh, how perfect. One, because you're a manifesting generator. And like, I think it's natural to get pulled in different directions. But two, it's you allowing yourself to naturally respond. Like, to give you another
Hmm.
example of that, I train and coach a lot of human design readers, people that are beginning to do this professionally. And I've sat with a lot of generators who have felt it's very unnatural to sit with somebody with like a script of all the things they want to share. Like, they often kind of like looking at a chart or having a conversation and just see what sparks them and see what kind of direction they get pulled in. And that feels like a much more natural way to offer a reading in a session than having
Yeah.
this kind of like prescribed, this is what I'm going to say, because it's often not until they're in their presence that they know what actually is going to excite them. And that is just one other point for responding, is like, it's not until not until a thing shows up in your world that you'll
Mm.
know whether it's for you or not. And so waiting to kind of respond is often just for that, waiting for that moment.
That's great. I get, I don't know what I average, a book or two a day is sent,
Yeah.
to my office, and I get them, and I just look at what I resonate with. I'll pull the person up, and I usually know. I did that with you. I don't know if you remember that. We did a pre-call because
I remember it. Yeah. Yeah.
I was a little wary, and I thought I want to see if we connect. And you came onto the screen and you smiled, and I thought, yeah, we're good. We're good. I did.
I remember that. You were like, we're good. I was like, should we talk? You're like, no, we're fine.
No, I just did, but it's interesting what you said too, because I often get, like, here, I've got the galley copy of your book, and a lot of
Yeah.
them come with, the 3 page from the PR agency or
Yeah.
the publisher, all the questions to ask. And from day one, I felt a little arrogant with it, but I just rejected it. I'm not going to ask the
Yeah.
questions you want me to ask. This is my conversation. Okay. So obviously I love it. Huge value. So that's manifesting generators, and
Yeah.
generators wait to respond. The
Yeah.
next one, projectors, which is you, is wait for an invitation. What does that mean?
So, waiting for an invitation is around the fact that as projectors, our gift, like I said, is not how much we can do, how much we can create. It's really our perspective, the questions we ask, how we see the world. And so, it's often best for us to wait to be invited and recognized by somebody before really kind of stepping in and sharing our gifts. And so, that
Hmm.
basically means, when I look at all the opportunities in my life, they've really emerged from somebody being like, hey, I think you'd be amazing at this. I really sense your gift here. Like, can you share it with the world? Like, that's just how everything's happened for me. And so for a projector, it's just waiting to kind of be recognized and genuinely invited before kind of stepping into something. You don't need to be invited for everything. This is not around, waiting for an invitation to like, move somewhere or study a system or even start a company. But when it comes to dating somebody, living with somebody, really sharing your gifts deeply with somebody, I would make sure that you feel so deeply seen and recognized for who you are, because that will allow you to kind of be in your gifts and not expect it to be a thing that you're not. One thing I'll say, just to kind of your earlier comment, when I first heard this, I was like, I have no idea how I meant to build a business around that. Like, how do I like wait to be invited when like I want clients and like I want to create opportunities for myself? And I think what I have personally found is that when I share my gifts kind of broadly, so like sharing on Instagram or being on podcasts or being in newsletters, I basically create space for invitations to come to me. When I kind of pitch somebody very specifically and I'm like, see me, like it never really works. I still
Mm.
sometimes do because I always am experimenting. But for me, my gift is making myself visible and waiting for the right invitations and recognition to come.
That's even more interesting. As before we started recording, I said, hey, Erin, I'm probably going to hit you up in the next couple of months. I've got this
Yeah.
thing I'm working on. And okay. Manifester is next, and it's initiate and inform, which if you had before human design, I would have picked that for myself.
Most people do. I've done this at the talks where I'll be like, okay, who thinks their strategies to initiate? Basically, everyone raises their hand because I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of us have been conditioned that way. Often manifestors have not allowed themselves to do that, but
Mm-hmm.
manifestors are the only type that are here to kind of initiate, and they don't need to wait for anything from the external world to kind of spark a response. They're just here to wait for like a thing to bubble up within them and just to pursue it. And manifestors, like I said, are meant to be very disruptive, innovative, just here to like make the first move, whether it comes to dating or pitching a company a role or whatever it is. But I think a lot of manifestors, like I said, haven't given themselves that permission. That's actually quite a new thing to do. The inform piece there is around the fact that manifestors are often tempted to kind of just go out and do their thing and not let people know. They're very kind of independent, autonomous, freedom loving people. And so one thing that's recommended for them is to just let people know what they're going to do before they do it. And that's not about asking for permission. It's just giving them a heads up. Like, hey, I'm going to be home late, or hey, I've like taken a different direction with this project, or hey, I'm not going to make it to this gathering. But their energy is so impactful. And when they don't let people know, people can really resist. And so letting people know and giving them a heads up is just a way to kind of create a little bit more flow in their life and make it easier to kind of bring their visions to life.
Erin, I have spent the majority of my life doing that, maybe acting more as a manifester of taking that
Yeah.
idea, go down into the basement and put it together and then come out and present it. And it is in the past, I don't know how many years, where I just realized I just don't get the best results. And
Yeah.
I am right now in a new place of wearing out WhatsApp, the app WhatsApp. I go
Yeah.
back and forth every day with a handful of people on the projects that I'm working on, discussing it. And there is so much, I feel so much more energy and
Mm,
peace, comfort, confidence. And I just didn't know. I just didn't know.
yeah.
Again, back to the responding aspect, but why would we, because I'm trying to think, was I exposed to that? Why would I have had a tendency to do that thing, which I'm now saying I see it didn't give the best results. I didn't think it gave me the best energy. Why did I fall into that? I wish I had just kind of fallen into what seems to be natural for me, but I'm having to tell myself, no, you are a responder, and that's what works best.
I think that I just also love that example because I feel like when you're in conversation with people, like you're just giving yourself a lot of things to respond to. So
Mm-hmm.
you're like, oh, that feels right. Oh, that doesn't. So like it's just such a beautiful example of how to work with that strategy. It's not like, let me throw my idea out the window. It's like, let me just like get more information, get more to respond to and let it become from there. I think in terms of your question, I don't know exactly why it is that we all are trying to be a thing that we're not. But what I often see in people, as I shared with you before we started recording, I have a 5-month old, I have a 2-year old. It's so fun to witness them in their designs. I have a manifestor and a manifesting generator because like they're so young and yet they're like expressing their designs so fully. And I feel like I see that so often in kids, like they're just themselves in such an authentic way. But often as we get older, we kind of see other models and think we're supposed to do something different. And I think we kind of like talk ourselves out of or move our way out of the way that we're designed to operate. And I think knowing our human design brings us back to it. So I don't really have an answer for why you thought you should initiate, only that most people I talk to feel that way, except for
Okay,
manifestors. Yeah,
let me
who are
ask
meant to.
you. So let's play with it. Let me ask you, because I'm sitting here thinking about it. So if my design is to respond,
Yeah,
which I can see a lot of history of that relevance again in the past, and now I'm experiencing it. But to say I fell into this aspect of initiating and doing my own thing, to say, okay, that was falling out of my design
yeah,
because what I'm thinking of is I probably was feeding a self-image problem
yeah,
in that I did not want to collaborate. I wanted to be smart. I wanted to create it on my own. I didn't
yeah,
want pushback because that threatened so maybe I'm just over here. And yeah, I fell out of my design because
yeah,
of a self-image weakness.
yep.
Fair enough.
Totally. And also like one of the biggest lessons in your design is around like the fact that you're just not here to prove anything, but there's such a drive to like, I've got to prove myself and prove my worth. And so it also feels like part of it could have come from that.
Well, that probably fits even better. Okay. Well, send me the counseling invoice as usual. The last one here is, which again, this is for the reflector, which is, we talked before,
Yeah.
it's the 1%. And it's wait a lunar cycle, which explain that because I had to look up, wait, what's a lunar cycle exactly?
I know the names are confusing sometimes. So waiting a lunar cycle really speaks to kind of how they make decisions, which is about giving themselves like a month before they decide for the big decisions. When it comes to their strategy, though, and how they are meant to create opportunities, what I often recommend for reflectors is that when they plant themselves in the right space, any space that feels good, it could be a cafe, a co-working space, a mastermind, that's when opportunities most naturally emerge for them. So if they're kind of looking to meet somebody or create an opportunity,
Hmm.
my biggest recommendation is be in spaces that feel good, and see what opportunities emerge in that place in like a really unexpected way. So
Yeah.
often it's like through kind of unexpected conversations or serendipitous moments where like things just emerge. So that's actually one of the most proactive ways they can create opportunities, is to just kind of be really high maintenance about and intentional about their space.
Okay, I want to go on to the next one, but I want to pull one thing out. Again, it's just so. I mean, that's why we're doing this. The interest level I have, and resonance. One of the aspects of my strategy that you literally spoke to in the book
Yeah.
was for me, was not having to justify something. Erin, that's been something that finally came to me at some point. I've been kind of bumbling around with how to say it and how to understand it, because um, it feels comfortable. I still struggle with the concept of feeling like I don't know. I'm not going to justify it. And I felt a little guilty, I think, for that, of going, I don't know, but I feel I'm so tired of justifying stuff. I don't know. It just is. So why do you want to do this or want to do this? I don't know. And for you to have it in there as part of my strategy, that's literally it, was, again, just, it helped. It helped I guess, just my confidence and my peace and how I apparently am wired. So thanks.
Oh, my pleasure. I think that I just see that so often. Like, I think what's really interesting for you is like, you can't explain why you have the response that you do, why you're pulled to certain things and pushed away from others. And you have a very powerful, active mind in your design. So it's probably easy to be like, I'm going to convince somebody or I'm going to explain it. But like, that's just not how your mind's meant to be used. It's meant to be serving other people in a bajillion other ways. But yeah, you can't explain why something lights you up and another thing doesn't. And so there's something really relieving to maybe let other people know that like the thing feels right or it doesn't. And you're not sure why, but you also know that you'll find out why later.
It feels like a breath of fresh air of just kind of
I
going, I
know.
want to do this. Why? I don't know.
I don't know. Feels right.
Thanks. I'm going to go.
And
Okay.
it's so fun for me to know that in sessions with clients, because I can hear in their voice when they're speaking from that just clear gut knowing, and when they're speaking from their mind. If they're like, oh, I think I should take this job because it might take me to this place and this might happen. I'm like, that doesn't quite sound like it's coming from your gut. Whereas when it comes like, they're like, it just felt right when it showed up and like, I've got to do it. It's like, oh, you're like clearly acting from your gut. And so you can really kind of start to hear in people's language where they're choosing from, and remind them to kind of go back to that visceral knowing, especially with somebody like your design, with a design like yours.
Okay. You just talked about gut. So the third piece here is authority,
Yeah.
which, and in that, if I'm right here, in my human design blueprint, in my guide, which
Yeah.
is, I don't know, 30 pages or however long it is. I don't know how long it is.
55
Okay.
plus.
Thanks.
Yeah.
This, your book is structured. Your book is not structured in exact alignment or exact
It
accordance
is
as
not.
the guide. So even in authority, I had to go back to the guide and I was looking at that, and you don't necessarily parse out authority in the guide, do you?
I do. I just use a little bit different language. It's called
Different.
wait for
Well, yeah.
clarity in the guide. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So in this authority, you've got 7.
Correct.
Just
You want
walk
to?
through them.
Okay.
Just walk through them and how they relate to. Well, again, I want to relate it to the types, but they don't specifically, do they?
Correct. So there are basically different authority options for every type. And so without getting too technical, like manifesting generators and generators have 2 possible authorities. Projectors like me, we have 5 possible authorities. So
Okay.
basically when you go through the book, you'll look up, like you said, go to humandesignblueprint.com, look up type strategy authority, and then you'll kind of know the chapter that applies to you. But this is what kind of things start to branch out, where you'll meet another manifesting generator and be like, oh, while we operate in similar ways, we also choose very differently. So authority is the part of our design that reveals how we're meant to make decisions. So once opportunities show up in our world or bubble up within us, it helps us know like which ones to pursue and when to pursue them. And so
Okay.
to kind of briefly cover the possibilities, and one thing I'll just say is, if you are to get the book, I highly recommend that you look up the authority of the people close to you, because it's so useful to kind of not only know how you choose, but also like how to support your partners in decision making, how to support your
Yeah.
clients, your colleagues. Like people are making, and I have a lot of examples and stories to this point in the book, like you're making collective decisions, but choose really differently. And it's useful to know what those differences are. So
And I'm
if
going to
you
come
are,
back as soon as we go through
yeah,
this section. I'm going to that's where I'm going to come to kind of on the leadership guiding aspect question that
Cool.
I've had, but go ahead.
Okay. So if you are a sacral authority, I also have called this trust your gut in the past. It means that you are meant to make decisions instantaneously in the moment based on your gut feeling. It's like a feeling that doesn't need space or time to settle, like it just is. I would say as soon as you get that full bodied gut yes, it's a signal to act. Anything but that is a no or not yet. So the not yet piece is around the fact that your gut is as much a tool to help you know where to put your energy as it is a tool to help you know when to actually put it there. So something might not feel right in your gut, and then a week later, you're like, oh, I must. Then we have emotional authorities like you and I. So you and I are different types, but we have the same authority. And so you might have an initial gut instinct, you might have an initial intuition around something. Yet for you and I, when we make meaningful decisions in our lives, it is best to sleep on things and feel into things and see what feeling remains consistent over time, and to not
Wow.
make a decision from an emotional high or low, but from a more calm, settled, peaceful place within us. And so I know my experience, I'm not sure if it's been yours, but in the moment I can be like, yes or no, and have like a really strong feeling. And then I wake up the next day and I feel the opposite. And then it just like feels complicated to like back out or whatever. And so I've just learned that as annoying as it is for me to wait, it brings me kind of a calm clarity and peace around a decision that is absolutely worth waiting for.
I'm going to ask a question on this because it's my show and I can talk about myself.
Whenever you want. Yeah.
Well, on this aspect, I mean, that
Yeah.
emotional being my authority. Erin, I grew up in a home that to me was wonderful in so many ways. We did not do emotions. We didn't really talk about them. They didn't exist. We didn't, especially if they were negative, there was no place for them. We just fix those things and get positive. And so some aspects of almost emotional neglect I've been brought to by counselors and whatnot. But today I really look at myself as having been very emotionally unintelligent. So we've done shows on emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
And I look at it and go, I've just been ignorant of it. No
Yeah.
different than saying, gosh, so how, what was your relationship with speaking German?
Yeah.
I just didn't have one really. I didn't have that. So in being, how would that relate to somebody? How would you expect that relate? Because I'm looking and going, that's why this resonates with me so much as I come into, I hope, more emotional intelligence. I mean, I'm studying that. I've got Brene Brown's book up on the shelf with her 87 emotions, and I read it to try to figure out and understand more about myself. And then to look at this and go, that's actually my authority, is paying attention to my emotions. I have not paid attention to them at all. And I think fell into probably more of an analytical belief about myself and the world, not not an awareness of my emotions, which would, leave me in a very, I don't know what, chaotic place or uncomfortable place, or, and I'm sure I mean, that's got to happen to a lot of people. So here's your innate authority that you were not attached to
Yeah.
for a long time.
And you didn't trust, and like, and it is,
Okay.
yeah, with your design, like you are meant to have ups and downs and like just experience a lot of emotional range. And the key is to like feel it all and let all the emotions move, but also to not make decisions when you're really deep in your feelings. And
Okay.
I so resonate with you. I too was like, oh, I've got to like keep it tight. I've got to like stay calm. But it's really useful to know like, no, the highs and lows are supernatural, and they're part of my journey, and they're just not meant to be where I choose from. And I will say that it's been really useful for me personally to communicate this to my husband, because when I'm in emotional low, he doesn't try to be like, why are you there? And what are you feeling? He's just like, oh, you're in a low. Like, I'm here for you on the other side. Do your thing. And so I think there is something so permission giving about this part of our designs when there is this authority around like, yeah, you're meant to have highs and lows. And like, maybe you haven't felt permission to feel those, but I will say like, the more you allow yourself to just feel them, like the more they move. Like, it's
Okay.
not about trying to prolong the highs or get out of the lows. It's just like being in the highs and lows and just like trusting that like you might just wake up one day and feel differently. And that's really normal. So yeah, I really hear what you're saying there.
Is that fairly common? I mean, as people are listening to this and they go do, get their guide here to see their authority. And I mean, as I read through it, I resonated. I saw the threads, but it was also this kind of revelation that I have not had a relationship with it. I have been disconnected from that. So as you work with people, is that fairly common?
So,
Here's your authority. It is. It may even resonate with you now. You have not participated in it to this
yes.
point.
Yeah. And one thing I'll just say, and this is maybe a level of depth that is too much, but in your design, similar to mine, your emotions are actually unconscious in your design. And so that basically there are some things that are very conscious, we're super aware of and really connected to, and some things that are a little bit harder to access that we may not recognize immediately. And so for you, it's not surprising that like that piece was harder to immediately access because yeah, you might not always be aware of them. And so it kind of brings a little bit more energy to be like really aware of the things that are surfacing. So I had a similar experience in my design.
Okay. Well, thank you. So that was the first two of the seven: sacral, gut,
Yeah.
emotional, and then the next one, which a word I had never heard of, splenic.
I
So,
know. Splenic or splenic.
splenic.
It's basically, it's actually very similar to the first one that I shared. This is possible for projectors or manifestors. It basically means that you are meant to be a very spontaneous, instinctive, intuitive decision maker. So you're meant to be very fast. It's not that gut feeling you're looking for. It's more like a quiet whisper, tingles, a voice that you hear. It's like the quietest authority of them all. So it often requires a lot of intention to tune into it. It can be a little bit hard to tune into it when you're around a lot of people with a lot of feelings around their decisions and your decisions. So having space and time alone to connect to your intuition can really kind of help it awaken within you.
Okay.
Then we've got self-projected. That's next in the book, right?
It
Um,
is. And gosh, I'm sorry. I wanted to get the percentages. So we
oh yeah,
start off with sacral, gut, and you have 35% of
yeah,
us generally. Emotional, which is myself and you, that's the most, 47. That's
most,
almost 50% of folks. Splenic, 11.
yeah.
And now you're on the fourth one, self-projected, and we're down to only 3%.
Yeah. So these last ones are much more rare.
Yeah.
So self-projected is only possible for projectors, and basically it means that the best way to find clarity is to talk things out with people you trust and just see how it feels to speak about a decision out loud. This is not about looking to others for advice or guidance. It's about just like talking things out in a way that isn't very controlled, because you'll often find that you'll say something and you're like, oh yeah, that feels right. Like the tone of your voice will change. So it's all about kind of listening to your voice when you're speaking and see where it is pulling you.
Is that too simplistic to attach it to those who, I mean, I have people in my life who say, yeah, I need to talk about it to figure it out, which
Yeah.
I have no relation to at all. If I'm talking, I'm distracting myself and confusing myself. I need silence.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Exactly. And I do recommend for these people that they're really explicit with their needs in conversations where they sit with somebody and they say, I need to talk this out. I'm not looking for your advice. Like, ask me questions, but like, I'm actually just trying to process it out loud. So many of these clients will leave voice notes for their friends and then like finish it by being like, I actually like, you don't need to respond. I actually just talked my way to clarity. It's like, thank you so much. And they're like, I didn't do anything. It's like, they didn't need to.
Okay.
So
I'm
that,
going to hold my question. Go on to the next one. Ego is the next one. That's number 5. And it's 1%.
super rare. Yeah. So ego is possible for projectors or manifestors. And this is all about choosing based on what you feel like you have the willpower to make happen. It's like what you really want. Like, what do you just like desire? What do you feel like you must do? You have to do. These people often, when something's right for them, they're like, I have to do it. I must do it. Like, and they really, it's important for them in their decisions to feel like they're really valued. Like they've got so much power, these people, that they've got to feel like so valued and compensated and appreciated for them to kind of really have the energy to show up fully.
Wow. Okay.
Then we've got
Yeah.
mental or environmental is
Which is
next.
2%.
2%, also very rare. This is just possible for projectors. It's similar to what I said with self-projected. This one is about talking things out as well, but the nuance here is that it's about talking things out with multiple people in spaces that feel really good. These
Okay.
people kind of are meant to like go through this process of talking things out in different environments to see what threads remain true over time, because different people will kind of pull out different parts of them, and that kind of holistic experience brings them to their truth.
Goodness. Okay. And the last one is really odd to me. None. So
None. I
explain that.
know.
1%.
Yeah, and this is just possible for reflectors. So for them, why it's called none, I don't choose that name. I don't like that name, but I use it just to kind of keep things consistent there. It basically means that they don't have a place within them to kind of look for their truth. Like it's not about like their gut feeling. It's more about a process they go through, just like I talked about with the last one. For reflectors, they are meant to give themselves a full 28 to 30 days before they make a big decision.
Yeah.
I hear that. I'm like, that's wild. And yet reflectors I sit with are like, oh yeah, obviously. And so this is not about every decision, of course, but it's about the big ones. And I would say it's not always going to be possible to wait 28 to 30 days. But I think what is really important is that they're not choosing from a place of pressure, but more from a place of like an unhurried way where they've kind of been able to disentangle their feelings from others and really kind of drop into what feels true for them because they're so sensitive to other people's feelings. So space kind of gives them space to kind of feel into it outside of someone else's energy.
I was I had an inclination to ask you about any references to propensities regarding gender, and figured you're
Yeah.
going to say that there's maybe not necessarily any. But it's interesting. That would have been. It seems like a relevant data point that would
Yeah.
have been part of this early on. But
Yeah.
so does it really just not have any place?
I haven't ever seen it have a place. I'm trying to think of like
Okay.
anecdotally, but like, it might express differently, of course, but I haven't, I've talked to so many types of both, so I haven't seen
Okay.
any correlation personally.
Okay. Here's my question then, Erin, that I wanted to come to that was just nagging at me as I was reviewing your book, reviewing my own human design blueprint guide, and thinking in regards to some projects that I'm working on in the self-help personal development space. If I look at myself and I look at my propensities and look at how unique it is to me, as you said, I'm a manifesting generator, but my guide in essence is, what did you say, there's 400,000, or well, you put a number to it. I mean, there's
400,000 different guides.
okay, different guys. So I am unique. So here I am. So let me own this. I'm going to back into this or lead into this, owning it. So here I am with the privilege of guiding people,
Yeah.
of influencing people through my podcast, giving my opinion, giving my thing. And what I want to do, what our propensity, all of ours is to find something that works for us, that we find benefit from, and share it as this truth, right? So I'm going to say, so here I am, guys, and I tried this. I've eaten nothing but carrots for a month. Oh my gosh. I'm running like 3-minute miles. I'm levitating. I actually flew for a short period of time. So here's the diet. Here it is. Everybody do it. Right.
I love this question already. Yeah.
Okay. And according to my design, that may be relevant for 30% of people, 15%. If there's that many guys, maybe 1%. I don't know.
Yeah.
And so here's my big lead in that I was debating back and forth with some other people in regards to leading up to talking about this. It would either one, and again, so folks, I'm talking to the coaches that you want to hire, the counselors you work with, the speakers you go to, the social media influencers that you're out there following that are all giving their advice on what to do. That I'm going to say most of them are getting advice on what works for them. What's the chances that lines up with you? Because here I am, as Kevin's saying, okay, well, I figured out that you got to sleep on everything. Okay. Anything that comes along, you got to sleep on it, because that's what I learned for myself.
Yeah.
And you need to be responsive. Don't initiate everything. Well, so either if I'm going to lead correctly, it feels like I got two choices. One, only work with people that I know are in alignment with me. Have them take the human design blueprint and that they're in alignment with me. And then I can guide them really well on the exact path that I'm on, that I know is the path for them. I only work with them, or I got to know this stuff like you do.
Yeah.
And I got to come along and do that. Now on a one-to-one basis, that's okay. But now with a platform, I mean, you've got a platform of, I don't know the whole thing, but on Instagram, there's, I don't know, 150,000 people or whatever it is.
Yeah.
To me, it really calls us to the mat for anybody who's an influencer to watch out what you're going out there and professing is the truth for everyone. So
it's just a great question, I think, and a great thread. I think that I can't tell you how often I've sat with clients that are like, okay, I took this business course, or I sat with this person and I like tried to do the thing they told me to do because it worked for them and it didn't work for me. And all of a sudden they feel so incompetent and so not enough when like it just wasn't right for them, And so like, I guess my feeling around it is it doesn't mean that you can't learn from a different type, but it does mean that like there's got to be some awareness on both sides of like, my formula for success or effective marketing just like might not be true for you. Like some people, when it comes to marketing, and I would say in your design specifically, like you're not really meant to be like, I'm going to go market to all these strangers. Like all these things happen through your community and your relationships and people. So
Mhm.
you having a strong community is your best marketing,
Yeah.
whereas other people might have a different strategy. So I think it's more just around the awareness for you as somebody guiding other people that like, I can't expect them to be just like me. And so, yes, it would be really useful for you to understand their design so you can guide them accordingly. I have, my certification now is like just training coaches in human design because I want to equip them with the tools to support people differently. But honestly, it's true as parents as well, where it's like, oh, my kid is not like me. How can I support them according to their uniqueness? So it doesn't always mean that I've got to learn every intricacy of their design, although I think it helps. But I think it's more just that awareness that you have of like, this thing working for me does not mean it will work for other people. So how can I just share it knowing that, so presenting it as an option for people, but they might be very different than me.
How do you deal with it, Erin, yourself? So, I mean, you're a relative mortal like the rest of us, and you're
Absolutely. Yeah.
getting your own guidance from people out there. That is it just as simple as you're listening to it, and but you're going to take it and
Yeah,
have discernment in regards to who you know you are, how you know you
exactly.
are. And when they go off saying, oh my gosh, and here's the Holy Grail, you're going to know that that one's not for me.
100%. Yeah, and I also just know the essence of my design, which is around like not working like crazy and like having space and rest in my days. So I'm really drawn to people that are talking about kind of the lifestyle they're building and more around not working themselves to the bone, that I'm just like, oh, I feel drawn to that because I know that it's just not sustainable for me. I've tried it. Like I kind of grew up in the entrepreneurial city scene in New York City, and I was just like trying to do everything all the time and trying very hard to be a manifesting generator. And now I'm like, oh, I love spending time with manifesting generators, but like, I don't have to keep up with them. I don't have to be that. So I think, yeah, exactly to your point. This is not about not taking in influences, but I think for me, it's about being a lot more discerning, and it really shapes who I'm drawn to learn from, because I'm kind of drawn to learn from people that will really support me in deepening a part of my design. Like, do you know Cal Newport?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's amazing, but I love his books because his books are so much around deep work and around kind of cyclical working. And I'm just like, oh, this feels like so useful for me as a projector, and so I think that it more just guides who I'm influenced by, and I no longer feel like not enough if I can't match what someone else is doing.
Do you seek out projectors for guidance more so?
I would say not intentionally, but I do think that kind of more naturally happens. I actually feel like I can learn so much from every type. It's just with the awareness that I'm not like them. Like I actually love manifestors so much. I have a lot of manifestors in my life because they're so good at initiating me into kind of my next level, but I just don't try to be like them. Manifesting generators are some of my best friends because like they're so buzzy and exciting and so uplifting, but like, I cannot try to match their energy and keep up with them. So I do feel like I have a lot of projector guides, but I actually love being guided by every type. But it's just with that awareness and discernment of like, I can take what they're saying and then adapt it to a way that works for me.
Oh, adapting. Thank you. So
Yeah.
would it be fair to say, so as you look out there and let's say that you were, looking for health and wellness guidance on,
Yeah.
fitness or diet or whatever, that you may listen to whoever and tune into what they're talking about doing. So if they're talking
Yeah.
about the benefits of, muscle mass, that's a big thing right now is muscle,
Yeah.
health from muscle. And you hear that and go, okay, I accept that seems like a pretty good pillar for people, but how you do it is going to be according to your style, not
Exactly.
the manifesting generator who's, lifting every day and super hard weights and what, I don't know, whatever so the what may be relevant, but not the how. Is that too simplistic?
Totally. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's like useful for me to be like, oh, this is what they're doing. And also like, can I do it in a way that's sustainable for me? And like, let me just give an example of this kind of outside of human design. I'm a mother of two young kids, a 5-month-old and a 2-year old. So like, I feel like where I might have once looked for guidance from people that were like didn't have kids at this moment in my life, learning from people that have young kids and that are navigating that alongside business, I prefer that because like it's just a really unique experience, as you know well, where I'm like, I'm at a moment where like I'm stretched in a lot of ways, and I like learning from people that are experiencing the same stretch. And so like I'm not going to do it like them, but like that is a helpful frame to be like, I'm not actually going to learn from these other people right now because that's just not the moment of life that I'm in. And so that's kind of, I think human design is very similar, where it's like, okay, this is like the kind of people that I'm ready to learn from right now. And again, then I have to adapt it in a way that actually works for my design, but like I can't take this kind of blanket advice. Does that make sense?
It's obviously important to me in this world where the propensity, and I've done it to go, oh my gosh, this worked for me. And
Of
it's out of a good
course.
heart
Of
and do it.
course.
But now to go, well, maybe to look at what's the essence of it? What's the essence of it? How you achieve that is going to go get your human design blueprint to figure
Yes,
out your how, your type,
exactly.
your strategy,
Yeah.
and your authority. Um, Erin, I'm obviously enamored with it
You got to
because,
study it.
well, at the end of the day, I want to mature myself,
Yeah.
my own evolution, and I do want to help others. I get great joy from doing that, but
Yeah.
how to do it, how to make myself change is hard enough, how to help somebody else. And so to look at something like this that helps us integrate it, one of my favorite
Yes.
words right now, to not just to take all this knowledge that we're getting, great stuff, but how do we integrate it with us? And I feel like the integration level for all of us is a lot less than I would like it to be. And this feels like a tool to help us integrate the things. And without it, that so often we end up frustrated, even guilty
Yeah.
about, oh my gosh, I've heard this 100 times and I'm just not doing it. Well, maybe
Yeah.
it's because, like me, I was trying to initiate, and that is not me.
It's not you.
Um,
Yeah, I think I love that. I think that's a really good reflection. I think it's such an amazing integration tool to be like, how do I actually practice all these things? And also, I
yeah.
think to your point, like, and also, how can I tailor my support to individuals, their uniqueness, and to trust they're all different?
Well, thank you. I am as excited for my own benefit from this as sharing it with other people. I think I'll continue to have questions. Maybe we should just have a recurring show
I'm into it. Yeah.
as I figured out. Well, hey, thank you. I'm stoked for this book and
Yeah.
to let people know about that and have more people in my life do this so that I can understand them
Yeah.
and know how to. I wish I had had this as a parent. I wish I did my best to understand personality styles and whatnot, but it was a lot of hard knocks learning that this would have helped. So, thanks. We'll
My
keep
pleasure.
maturing down this
I
road.
know. Such a pleasure. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me back.
Thank you, Erin. Well, thanks for joining us on this in this episode, this conversation. Again, that's Erin Claire Jones, and you can find her new book, which again is How Do You Choose? A Human Design Guide to What's Best for You at Work, in Love, and in Life. You can find that. You can find the Human Design Blueprint. There's a free version that you can pay for an extended one at humandesignblueprint.com. Got a question for myself, for Erin, about human design or about taking your human design, getting it plugged into your life and in your work. Connect with me, kevinmiller.co, or email me, kmiller@kevinmiller.co. And until next time, here's to the evolving you.
Yeah.